Hello, and welcome to Hobby Showdown. My name is Phil, and today we're going to talk about Ark Nova. I'll share with you my first impressions of this game, and some highlights that I had from the solo game that I played on Tabletop Simulator, and just give you some first impressions and thoughts on how well this game plays and how much I like it. And spoiler alert, I really like this game. So here is my final situation with my personal board. As you can see, I was able to place a couple of polyomino tiles here, which I really enjoyed doing. It's a small little puzzle that I often find enjoyable when I play, Uwe Rosenberg games. I was able to upgrade all of my action cards and really liked that mechanism. I'll get into that a little bit later of how much I enjoyed that. And so on and so forth. I'll show you my final score in just a minute. But over here on the right, you see the solo card, and so I'll just go ahead and talk about the solo game and how much it differs from the multiplayer game. So in the solo game, you have this one card which has all of these cubes here, and when you take a turn, you move your cube from the left over to the right, and you just take your turns back to back, and as you go, you keep moving these cubes over, and when you get to the end here, you trigger a break, and you take your break as normal, as explained in the rules. But then after you do so, you take the topmost cube and you move it over to the association board where the donations are held, providing that extra pressure to get those donations in and get those conservation points. And so then you lose all of the you lose that tile, and makes the game go by a little bit quicker. And so if you count these up, it's about 27 actions, I think, if I counted right. When you get down to the last two cubes, then after you move the second cube over, then the game is done. So here are the cards that I played. I mostly played the reptile icons, as you can see here with this little image. I played more of these, but ended up discarding them in order to set them free to the wild thematically, and gain some conservation points there, which really helped me win this particular game. Partway through the game, I realized how much I needed to get those conservation points here, as listed by this icon, and this final objective card really came into play. But it was really fun to play these cards. I would say, if you're looking for that terraforming Mars experience, it's going to be these cards right here. The blue sponsor cards. They offer somewhat of an engine to build, somewhat of a focus to have during the game. For example, the sea turtle tank, every time I played a reptile icon onto my zoo, I could sell cards from my hand to get money, which came in handy a couple times. And then this veterinarian card really came into play. As you'll see, I went up the science track and got an extra conservation point, which helped me to snag that victory. But most of these animal cards are a one and done type of deal, and I think it's done that way by design, so you can release them into the wild and get points that way, rather than having permanent cards on the board to offer a mode of engine building for different resources, like in Terraforming Mars. There's really only one resource, and that's money. And so, look for these blue cards for that engine there. So moving on, here is the final state of the board and the main scoring board. As you can see here, this is where I ended up. A lot more appeal than I thought I would have. Move that down there. And so you can see that the way that the scoring works too is kind of difficult for me to wrap my head around. But you take the conservation area that you're at, so like I'm on 18, and you see that it surrounds 3 of these appeal cards right here, or these appeal spaces. And you take the lowest amount, which is 70. I'll just write that here. And then you subtract the actual space that you're on for your appeal. So I'm actually on 70. So 70 minus 70 equals 0. And so therefore, if you do pass your token, and let's say I was on 78, it would be 78 minus 70, which is 8 points, and you'd have 8 points in the game. So pretty cool way to score the game. I was pretty low on the conservation track until the very end when I knew I had to get to this spot right here, and and so it's very important to focus on that near the mid to late game. Here we have the association board, and right here is where we're putting our solo tiles to add that pressure to claim some extra conservation points. And these objective cards, basically these green conservation project cards, are what we focused on, or what I focused on getting some extra points into. And so if you remember, I played some predator cards, and I tried to get some primate cards, but I didn't have enough time, which I appreciate. I appreciate a game when it ends before it really gets going. So, I could have done a little bit better, I think, to focus, but it was my first time playing, so whatever. I really got a big boost right here with this conservation card that came from the deck. And so there are a handful of those that can add some extra objectives to get those nice points for you to overlap and trigger the end of the game. Here are the some of the starting conservation cards as well. And so they're pretty basic, like, if you play cards that have a region tile or a region in their name, or if they're a certain animal type as well, then you get certain points if you can take the conservation action, which is basically having 5 power with the association card. Not much to say here. I appreciate the variety that they have, and offers a little bit of a variety to what kind of animal cards you want to play during the game in order to get these points. Then finally, here is these are some of the final objective cards that you get at the beginning of the game. Once you hit the 10 conservation point marker, you discard one of them from your hand. And so you have to choose which card you want to go after. And I believe some animal cards, especially the larger cards, larger animals like the elephants and whatnot, can allow you to draw another one and have some extra ones to score at the end of the game. And there are a variety of different ways that you can score conservation points at the end. For example, having large animals, or this one, Conservation Zoo, seems pretty interesting. If you just go ahead and try to get conservation projects done and place in your cubes from your board, you automatically get more conservation points at the end of the game. So that seems like a really good objective card to have. But I think all of these hopefully are scaled and balanced in a way that it makes any particular strategy worth going after. But after a couple of plays, perhaps we'll figure that out. So my final thoughts, or I guess my final first impression thought, is that Ark Nova feels like Wingspan, but I gotta write this down, but heavier. Not only in theme, as there's a lot more going on than Wingspan, but in the way that it played. I feel like, and Wingspan is one of my favorite games too. When you play Wingspan, I feel like you only have 5 actions to take, and you're constantly cycling through them, trying to get resources to build birds, and then you need to draw bird cards in order to play those birds. But then as you start to play more birds, then you need to grab eggs and so on and so forth, and then use those eggs to play birds. And so all the actions are intertwined. And with Ark Nova, the 5 action cards that you have, I try to maximize the power that I had with those action cards at the 4 or 5 level, using those extra point tokens when necessary. And so therefore it literally cycled through the cards, and basically I felt like the flow was you use that money to build up your zoo, and then you gain some more money so you can pay for animal cards and play those, get more appeal, take a break, increase your income, play, and then rinse and repeat. Keep playing those cards, drawing more cards so you can play more animals. And then once you do have a good income as far as appeal is concerned, then you could focus on getting rid of those animals in one way or another, making donations so you can get conservation points and score big time at the end of the game. The animal cards felt like the cards from Wingspan as well. All of them pretty much had a simple action that they did where it kind of manipulated the card draw. Say, drawing from the reputation spot, those 6 face-up cards, or from the deck, or switching around your actions, or getting you some money. And so it felt pretty straightforward how those cards worked. And once again, they were one and done. So it felt more like a Wingspan type of thing. And then those sponsor cards were kind of like kind of like the final objective cards, those pink salmon colored cards, plus they felt like the Wingspan objective cards that you have in your hand as you go along. And so I know this game gets a lot of comparison to Terraforming Mars. I think the only comparison is the amount of cards that are in the game, the amount of individual cards. But in Wingspan, you have that as well. And so in theme and in playstyle, I felt like this was Wingspan, but a little bit crunchier, which I really enjoy. I love Wingspan. It's easy to get to the table. And I think if you're in the in company of people who want to play a little bit of a heavier game but really enjoy this theme, then Ark Nova is going to be a hit. And so I'm going to keep playing this game on Tabletop Simulator and seeing if I can get a good score with the campaign now that I really know the rules. Oh, by the way, it took about an hour and a half for me to learn, or I guess refresh the rules from the gameplay that I've seen on YouTube, and to learn the solar rules and then refer to the rulebook as I played along. So an hour and a half, I could see that going down to about 45 minutes to an hour once I know how the game plays, maybe a little bit longer based on how much decision space is there, and that's something that I'm interested in figuring out. I think I want to dive a little bit deeper into the cards themselves and taking a look at the sponsor cards, for example, the engine building ones. I briefly glanced through the deck, and when I got done with the end of the game as well, there were still like 165 cards left in that deck, and so there's more than enough variety of these cards to be able to play 3 games back to back and have them feel different. Very similar to the solo mode in Newsfjord, which I just recently acquired and started playing a lot, and so that was fun to see. And so I really enjoy the solo mode of this game. It's nice to have that objective of trying to pass your scoring markers by the end of 27 turns or so, and I think it feels a little bit different than a multiplayer game would, where it's more open to whoever can reach that status first. So I'm really excited to keep playing this game. I think this feels like home, and it's just a little bit more meat on the bones compared to Wingspan, but it still has that formula, I feel like. So anyway, thank you for watching, and stay tuned for some more Ark Nova content and some other board game content as well. Thanks.